AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host, Mark Kelly, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Welcome to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Today's guest is Peter Voss. Peter's the founder, CEO, chief scientist at AGI Innovations and Aigo.ai. Peter's really actually a pioneer in AI and also actually coined the term AGI. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your background.
Great. So I actually started out as an electronics engineer, and then I fell in love with software, and my electronics company turned into a software company. So I actually developed an ERP software package, and the company grew very nicely from the garage to 400 people, and we did an IPO. So that was very nice. Love to do that again. But the point is, when I sold the shares and sold my interest in the company, it really struck me, well, what do I want to do next? And the thing that struck me is how brittle and stupid software is in general. And, I was very proud of my own software, of course, but still, whatever the programmer doesn't anticipate or think of, it can't do it. Software doesn't have any common sense, and it doesn't sort of improve and learn. And that's really what I wanted to tackle, and that's what I've ended up doing for the last 15, or actually more like 20 years. And then in 2001, I actually started my first AI company, initially purely in an R&D mode to build various prototypes, experiment, and build out the platform of AI. And that's really how I got into this.
Tell us a little bit about the kind of challenges that you're looking to try to solve now, because we all, for myself, I've recently got Alexa Spot in our house and our whole family's engaging with it, but it lacks context.
Yes, exactly what you say, the lack context and are narrow. And I'll talk a little bit about that first in terms of the different types of AI. When the term artificial intelligence was first coined some 60 years ago, the original idea was always that AI is all about general intelligence and learning, that you basically have a thinking, learning, reasoning system. Now, originally, these initial pioneers thought they could crack this in like 6 months or a year. To get to human level intelligence. Well, it turned out decades and decades later that it's really, really hard problem. So what happened over the decades, the field of artificial intelligence really became narrow AI, so that engineers would basically take some problem domain, whether it's playing chess, which of course is famous, and figure out how they would basically solve the problem using software. So it's basically their intelligence solving the problem and coding, that particular problem. And the same is true whether you're using AI for, medical diagnosis or traffic control or container management or face recognition. AI has become narrow AI, solving one problem at a time and taking the programmer's intelligence and turning it into code. And that's unfortunately really where AI has been. And part of my research was basically to say, no, we need to go back to the original dream and intent of building thinking and learning machines that by themselves can learn, with our help and coaching and so on, but that they can learn to do these various tasks. And that's ultimately we want a learning, thinking, reasoning machine. And this is where I got together with two other people in 2001, and we coined the term artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which is now sort of quite popular and used to basically refer to what AI was right at the beginning. But pretty much everybody in the field of AI right now is actually working on narrow AI. And this sort of leads me into the shortcomings of the current systems.
they're very, very big, challenging problems, and people in some ways can underestimate them and probably want results quicker, but they are particularly challenging problems. How do you go about solving some of those problems? Because it's not like you can check a manual to kind of look up these solutions, or Google these solutions, right? Or
Right.
Wikipedia, like everything else that we're trying to solve.
Right. So, so the first thing is really that you need to understand that the problem you're trying to solve is AGI, general intelligence. And, you know, most people working in AI don't even think in those terms. You know, it's just, well, it's narrow AI. We're solving one particular problem. We're solving one particular type of conversation. So how do I know that somebody wants to call Uber? You know, okay, well, what are all the different ways you can say, I want Uber? And then you write a little app to actually, you know, have the conversation. Where do you want to go? How many people are going? Or, you know, what type of Uber do you want? And they write this little program. And it's basically they're just taking their solution and turning it into code. So to solve the problem of AGI, the first thing you have to identify that that's what you want to work on. That's really what you want to do. And then the second thing is, you really have to have that long-term vision, and you have to have that determination, because to solve any particular problem will always be easier by just coding, sitting down and coding something. You know, it's a much bigger project to say, I have a thinking, learning engine that can learn these particular skills. So it really takes that, you know, determination and recognition, and of course, industry, you know, quarter results and you know, just all the incentives are really working against that. So that's kind of one of the big challenges. But then, you know, even if you believe or understand that AGI is really what you want, and you even have the money to do that, you still have to then know how to actually do this, how to achieve it. And there are not too many people who even have a theory of how to do it, because and the main reason is that most people who try to solve the problem come from an engineering background, from a mathematics background, and they try to solve it sort of as a logical mathematical problem. And while that contribution is important, you absolutely need to be able to think about the problem as like a cognitive psychologist. And so most cognitive psychologists aren't good programmers or engineers, and most engineers, software engineers, aren't really comfortable thinking like a cognitive psychologist. So in addition, you have to have that kind of overlap of somebody who can think about the problem abstractly and then implement it in a proper engineering terms.
Yeah, and you also just really need to have kind of empathy. So I always kind of think of kind of design thinking when it comes to that, and how you kind of approach that from that user experience. And you don't necessarily set up these kind of teams that using an agile type environment where everyone's got these kind of nice situated roles, or you're doing kind of daily scrums. It's not really going to work like that. These are problems and challenges that are very unique that you're looking to try to solve.
Right. I mean, on our team, for example, we have 12 people on the team, and so 8 people on the team are not programmers. They're actually what we call AI psychologists. So they they have linguistics training or cognitive psychology training, and they train and teach Aigo and work with Aigo's mind, so to speak. And only a small part of our team do actually the coding and the engineering. So it's a very, very different approach. But to get back to your sort of question of the frustrations, the limitations of the current chatbots. They all using big data approaches. I mean, that's DARPA calls this the second wave of AI. The first wave was all the sort of logic programming and decision trees and whatnot that we've had for decades. And now, in the last 5-6 years, the second wave has hit us like a tsunami, that basically it's all about big data, machine learning. The big companies, the big corporations have amassed so much data and they have so much computing power that's a hammer they've got, so everything looks like a nail. And you can do a lot of things with big data. I mean, machine learning is very, very powerful. If a static statistical approach is what you want, if you want to recognize images or do speech recognition by itself or sentiment analysis, you want to figure out what does this consumer profile, what is this consumer will they likely buy, so to increase your click-through rate. Those techniques are fantastic, and a small improvement, a small percentage improvement can be worth billions of dollars.
What is the kind of ultimate benefits that you feel the customers can get from using your kind of conversational AI or your advanced conversational AI systems?
Right. So, you know, I was talking about the first wave and second wave of AI, and basically what DARPA is talking about the third wave of AI is AI that can actually think and reason, and you know, has memory, and that can adapt to changing circumstances, and that's what we've been working on for the last 20 years. We've already commercialized it in the call center space very successfully, and we now have the second generation of that, which we are commercializing more broadly to the consumer and in the enterprise. Now, there are a couple of very key differences between second wave and third wave, or statistical systems and cognitive architecture. And I can list the differences. The key ones that directly relate to the user's frustration or lack of frustration, whichever way it is the current systems, the current chatbots, current technology has no memory. It doesn't remember what you said earlier. They don't learn interactively. You can't teach them new things. They can't reason. They don't have the reasoning ability. They can't explain themselves. So, and because they don't have memory, they also don't have context, the thing you mentioned, you know, right at the beginning. So that's not very intelligent, you know. So if you're dealing with a system that doesn't remember the previous sentence you said or what you said 5 minutes ago, a system that can't learn new things, you know, can't learn your preferences or can't learn some fact about you interactively, a system that can't reason, that doesn't have any reasoning ability, is just not very smart. So by having a cognitive architecture that has that memory and learning and reasoning, you can actually have a meaningful ongoing conversation, and the system can get better and more useful over time.
Tell us also about the privacy and how important privacy is, and how you've been kind of set from day one about actually making sure that you take that into consideration for the user experience.
Right. So our vision is, you know, what many people see in the future is to have a personal assistant that's more like Jarvis or her, what we see in the movies, you know, something that really yours, learns from you, adapts. But there are a couple of things that stand in the way of actually achieving that. And one of them is, of course, the lack of intelligence in the current chatbots, which we've been talking about. But the other thing is the corporate philosophy. All of the current chatbots are designed by the mega corporations to serve their agenda. So, you know, Siri's and Alexa's and so, they are owned and controlled by the big companies. And your data is controlled by them, and they tend to be quite promiscuous with your data, sharing it and using it, selling it. So what people ultimately want, though, is they want a personal assistant that they own, and they own the data, and they control the data. And we actually call our personal assistant a personal assistant, because the word personal is so important. So that's a commitment we've made as a company, that we will not sell or share your data. Your data is yours.
A little bit, pretty changing gears slightly, do you see a difference in the advances that are happening now with machine learning, with the subset of deep learning, in terms of what can be done with data, what inferences can actually come from that, how we're applying it to different challenges or different problems that we're looking to solve? And is that really exciting you at the moment, or do you think we're at this hype cycle that where it's just so much hype and we're actually quite far behind actually looking to achieve what's being set out by the media, academics? Where's your kind of your perspective? I've kind of given you a bit of a guide that say deep learning is the way, but I'm actually just interested to see what your perspective on that is.
So I think deep learning, machine learning is a very powerful technique, but I think it's also way overhyped. It's I mean, the godfather of deep learning, Jeff Hinton, last year said that we should throw it all out and start over. And, you know, that coming from one of the gurus of the field, he realizes that that's not real intelligence. And I think trying to tweak it and tinker with it, isn't really going to be very satisfactory. It really is throwing it out and starting it over. Now, clearly, the techniques and technology have a place in the overall sort of AI space or software engineering space, and they are very, very powerful for the right kind of the static, statistical kind of applications that they are. But I think we're going to need to see a shift for more people to adopt a cognitive kind of approach. But it's going to be hard because there's a whole generation of engineers that are being trained that really only know deep learning. They don't even know that it could be anything else. I mean, right now, if you want to do a PhD in computer science, it has to be on machine learning. If you want to earn the big bucks, it's machine learning. It's basically sucking all of the oxygen out of the air, and that does worry me. That I think to make real progress in AI, we need to get past that. I look forward when the examples you gave of how to use a personal assistant, that you have this personal assistant that you trust, that knows about you, that gets better and learns more about you, but that's also separated from the mega corporation, because it doesn't help if you have Alexa only recommending stuff that Amazon sells, or if Google recommends stuff that they happen to have ads for. So you really want this fountain of rationality that you can trust, that'll give you good advice.
Peter, where can people find out a little bit more about you?
So the simplest way is Aigo.ai, so www.AigoToken But you can also find me, Peter Voss. If you Google, I'm pretty active on Facebook and Medium and LinkedIn and whatnot. So, yeah.
Peter, thank you very much. Peter Voss, founder, CEO, chief scientist at AGI Innovations and Aigo.ai. Thank you very much for your time today.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. It was fun. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. For more information, contact mark@alldus.com. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.